everyone, and welcome to UFO Secret Space Panel show on Aquarian Radio Network. And I'm your host, Lessin, with Theresa J. Morris and Karen. I got my other Karen in my mind. Karen Gresham Nickell. I have another friend that used to be co-host, Karen Christine Patrick, but she's on hiatus right now. And today we're going to talk about all kinds of interesting things. If you go to aquarianradio.com, you can see information, pictures, YouTubes, articles, supporting articles. We're living in very interesting, volatile times. We're doing a panel-style discussion. I'll explain that to everybody in just a minute. I'm going to go get my co-host, Karen Nickell, and bring her on. Okay, one second here. Aloha, Karen, are you here?
I'm here, and it's good to be with you on your show.
Oh, well, today this is our show, and we are doing a discussion panel. Now, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and I am going to call Theresa J. Morris, our third in our panel. So bear with me as I start the call, and just tell everybody a little bit about who you are, and just not a long bio, but a short bio. Okay.
Sure. Okay, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I'm also an empath, and I teach people how to go to higher consciousness at a time like this that we're encountering, or any time really. There's a way to do it. And I also do energy readings where I read the electromagnetic field of the individual and through sound. And so I also make personalized MP3s, and I channel and receive what the individual needs by analyzing their sound and their energy field, and then I put it into the music, and I send it to them. And
so lovely.
Basically, yeah, I have 3 published on Amazon, just for general, 1 in Portuguese and 2 or 3 in English. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So, and
okay,
I've been doing this for 40 years. So anyway.
Oh, you've been doing this for 40 years. Yes, we have all been in this for a long time.
Long time.
1977. All right, I'm going to click on the mic to see if we are connected to TJ Morris ET Radio. Let me see what's going on here. She might already be broadcasting. Hold on, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, TJ. Theresa J. Morris.
Is here TJ? Can I help you?
Yes, you can.
Hi, this is Theresa J. Morris with TJ Morris Agency.
This is your co-panelist, Jen. We're joining you for the UFO.
Do I have to be intelligent?
No,
I have to be intelligent tonight.
Intelligent.
Janet, your phone's
we're
ringing.
We're going to do our best. I know. It was my doctor. I don't want to talk to my doctor. I'm going to shut it off. I haven't heard from my doctor
Are you
in a
sick?
year. No, it's a Dr. Ryan Fusado. That's our doctor. It's both of our doctors. Oh, they probably want, they need money, so they want to get people to come in. Come in and get your COVID test. We'll run up the bill.
We're doing a doctor commercial to get your colon tested. Okay.
They do that to nobody's been going to the doctor. So
that's interesting because the digestive system and the ETs right now are going strong.
Well, let me tell you, my daughter just brought me dinner, and this here was running, so it's finger licking good, folks. So if y'all want to sponsor me with KFC, it's okay. We're right here in Gulf Breeze. That's in the Panhandle of Florida.
I love KFC. It's horrible for you. It's so fatty and all that stuff. But about once a year,
you're
going past
finger licking good pizza.
Oh, that's good. I'm getting hungry.
Well, let me tell you.
When you drive past her, you have to stop.
I just got a breast.
Oh. Okay.
We call them breastas, just in case people don't know here in the South. If y'all, now I mentioned we come from a mixed and a blended family, Karen, just so you know. So my
I love
Chris
Florida.
Rock
That's
did something funny.
What did Chris
You born
Rock
in Florida?
You're really talking Southern right now. You got like super Southern on.
Okay, I'll stop.
TJ's from another part
it's
of the
not
world.
necessary. It's way country.
It's okay, TJ. I have to work on my Texas accent a lot, and the only way I can get rid of it is through speaking Portuguese. So,
well, I spent 20 years learning how to do that in Kentucky.
What?
I lived in Ohio County, Kentucky, over there where I was married to my husband in Hartford. But no, they don't talk. He didn't even talk like that. So really, it's sort of a very extended type. But I'll try to not have an accent. But I don't think I can do it anymore. Now, in the military, when I traveled the world, seriously, I had no one could guess where I was from. And I had been living in Texas and went to high school, Karen. I should have sounded like you, but we didn't.
Well, I tried.
We moved from Monroe, Louisiana.
Wait. One at a time. Okay, go ahead, Karen. Say your comment. Go ahead.
No, I said in the good old days of the 70s in radio, when I was with David St. Clair, he said, you have to work on that Texas accent. And I said, well, I'll try. So I've still tried, but I've been here for a long time, and I haven't been out of the country in a while. So since 2011, I haven't been inside.
Where were you born? Are you American or are you from out of country? Because you speak Italian.
Well,
are you
I
American?
speak Italian. I am. I'm American. I speak Portuguese, Portuñol, with bad Spanish, and Italian. But my Italian comes and goes. But my Portuguese pretty much stays the same, pretty well.
How did you get?
I had to pay a translator. Go ahead, Janet.
How did you get to learn Portuguese? So, how did you get to learn that when you didn't live there? Is that your family? Are you Portuguese family? Or?
No, I've lived there. I lived there for 8 years. But that's whenever I did that research with David. But, I just got through Spanish to get my degree from Texas Wesleyan because I had to take it. And I was too young to go to college back then. I went way too young. But when I went to Brazil, I couldn't speak Portuguese. And because of the necessity to communicate, that takes the learn of a language. But I've never had a lesson in it. And I can speak it pretty well. I can write not so well, but I can speak it pretty good, really good. And the more intense I get, the better it sounds. So my CDs
So the immersion process. You immersed yourself in the culture, and it was like you immersed yourself in the culture, and it was like sink or swim, throwing you into deep water and sink or swim. So you had to learn, or you weren't able to communicate. Okay. The similar thing happened with my neighbors.
Yeah, and it's funny because we're compatible with sound. And like I lived in San Remo and Rome, and then I also lived in Monte Carlo. And that's primarily French, but I cannot speak French at all. A few words, but I cannot get the tone.
Okay, well, let me do a little background on the show before we get all. I call this all chatty Cathy and folksy, but I'm here to do a very
you think
very serious. You think? We're here to do a very serious talk today, seriously. So I'm going to get us off on the right foot. We're already like 10 minutes into the show, and so we're doing a panel, and so these panels are 2 hours, 120 minutes. And what I want to do is structure us, which is really hard. It's like herding cats. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to get 5 minutes each to talk about our topic. And this is an exercise on staying on topic, right, instead of going all over the place, which we tend to do. And using a talking.
You mean like Al Sharpton did? Al Sharpton got taught how to do that. Stay on topic.
We're not going to. Yeah, we're going to stay on topic. So we're going to stay on topic. if you go, I don't know if you guys are in front of your computer, but I put all the topics. We have 33 topics that the three of us put down for today's show. We're not going to get to them all. But when you get past the talking stick, you can go on and pick one of the topics, and you don't have to do them any kind of order, but you're going to stay on that topic for 5 minutes. But if you don't want to go the whole 5 minutes, say you feel like you're complete, you're going to say, I'm passing the talking stick, and they'll pass it to the
what
next
do I
person.
win?
You
what do I win
win
if I win?
a trip to Hawaii.
Well, I'm gonna have
Awesome.
to get my clock situated where I can see what the time is, because I don't know how to find it.
Yeah, I'm eating dinner.
Okay, you eat dinner.
It's
I will
my
do
dinner
the clock,
time right now.
I'm going to set the clock so
I'll
we'll
be
let
the
you go third.
technician. I'm good. I'm going to run the board.
Well, we also have a board because we are simulcasting this on Korean Radio Network and ET. What's yours? Yours is ET.
You never could remember. Let me announce. This here's our 8-year anniversary, Janet, with this dumb Southern.
Oh my God! The 5th of June is our.
We're 8 years. We've got 8 years of this, Karen. I can't hardly stand it. I've been doing 8 years of this with her on every kind of subject in the cosmos.
And she can hardly stand it.
That's great. That's fabulous.
We haven't killed each other.
Well, that's
because we have
we almost did.
Nah, we never did. Unless you've got a
so, Janet, this is exciting. Karen joined us in 2020. Now, Karen, did you start with me in April? Because you did a few shows with Janet before you came on my brand, or my show, which is TJ Morris ET Radio, Karen.
Yeah,
I need Karen's email.
Karen for years.
For years.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah,
we've known each other for years.
But
she came on a couple times over the years. I tried to, everybody I meet, I try to interview. I go, oh, you want to come on the radio? So be careful when you meet me.
But
I don't have topics.
Real life.
Yes, you do. Yeah, we met in real life.
Real life.
And then you came on the show.
Manifestation.
So, well, happy anniversary to us. Maybe have a state more. And that was fast. That went very fast. 8 years.
And you wanted me to keep TJ Morris Agency. You never could remember my show name, my brand. It was
your
from
show
June 3rd, 2012, folks. Janet came on TJ Morris ET Radio. Never changed.
Yeah,
and Janet couldn't remember it for 8 years, Karen.
No, I know it. I was just scrolling. I was scrolling down on my computer to get to where that was. Because I wrote it down, Aquarian Radio and TJ Morris ET Radio simulcast. It's on.
Well, it cost me $100 a month, 40 and 50.
Oh, wow.
I know. But let's get to the show. We're talking about...
I pay 40 on Blog Talk and 50 on Spreaker, plus a bunch of other people to get us out here. We pay a lot. Okay, let me go look.
We're going to talk about
the issues
today.
Janet, this organizer.
Go to aquarianradio.com. I sent you the link.
All right, I'm going to Aquarian.
We're going to get more organized. This is 2020 is about getting organized.
I'm going to do you like, what's the name of your radio?
I sent Karen the link. And when
Let me see if I can get onto my phone.
We're doing the view, okay? This is my idea, and this is what
we're doing the view.
We're doing
an
ET view, okay? So we're going to be more organized. We're on the clock.
ET phone home.
The clock's going to run out, and we're going to talk about today, as per our suggestions. Karen said, how do we assist those who don't understand awakening consciousness? What is the importance of consciousness in raising energy frequencies of humankind on the earth? What's the ET connection and how important is it at these times of transition? And you said, TJ, we're going to talk about trusting the self and how that's done. We talked about God. I forget who said what, but talk about God as source of cosmic love, We're going to share a little bit about life stories, or chapters of our lives. We're going to talk about TJ and Jenna. I said that we need to explain what happened. How did we get started when we were in the crib when we saw TVs, ETs? But what I really want to focus on, because this is what's hot in the news right now. This is June 5th of 2020, and right now, the conversation is about racism and what it does it mean to be racist. And people are saying, well, we're all racist in some way. And how can you tell if you're racist? And what's the difference between racism and tribalism? And how can we stop radical violence in America? And, how many Americans are killed by cops every year? And how many that are killed are people of color? And how many women and mentally ill and homeless and poor? And then there's a comparison between the 68 protests following the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King with the protests of today. And on and on, we've got 33 topics on aquariumradios.com on this. But what happened, and I'll start, and I'll put my timer on, 5 minutes. Let me put my timer on 1 second. Okay, hold on 1 second.
All right, I'm on mute. Now we're going to get serious. Okay. I'm on mute.
Now,
just tell me when I got to come on.
I'm going to go 5 minutes. I will. Okay, here we go. 5 minutes. Oh, come on. I got to get this set up. Oh, hold 1 second. Here we go. 5 minutes. Start. Okay, so yesterday I was watching Don Lemon and which one was it? One of the talk show hosts. I can see his picture in my mind, but I get confused on which one it was. And they were talking about systemic racism. And they were talking about the violence. And, of course, we had George Floyd killed, and yesterday was his funeral. We've had a week of racism, and the world has been on fire. But I started, and this was very a nasty thing to do right before I went to bed, but I was so curious after watching this commentary with the two of them, and I started to Google police violence, and I was actually very shocked, and I only made it through about 5 or 6 videos where they seem to, it just goes across the board, actually. I mean, they're doing a lot of people of color, but the violence is just extreme. So I saw one video where there was a poor man, and, it doesn't really matter his color, but he happened to be white, and I didn't even pay attention to the color of the cops. Everybody's kind of mixed right now, but there were some cops, and they cornered this poor man who was obviously mentally slow, very slow mentally. I don't want to use a politically inappropriate term, but he was slow. And they basically ripped him out of his car, threw him on the ground, and they kept tasering him until he was just bleeding. And then there was another woman that was obviously mentally incapacitated. She was somehow in a motel, was one of your days in or something, and she was running around with scissors, and the cop wanted her to stop holding these scissors, and she was on the phone, panic talking to a friend or something, and she wasn't going to set those down, and then she got shot, and he killed her. And then there was another one where these people were having a domestic fight, husband and wife, and there's 3 kids, and they were outside, and I guess the neighbors called the cops, and they came up to the woman, and the dog, which was their family dog, started to defend its family. And so the cop said, lady, control your dog. And she was obeying the cop, and he went to shoot her, or I guess, so the story was. And she shot the dog, and he shot her, and that leaving these children with no mother. And it went on and on and on and on and on. And I think, and I'll put this up, I'll pass the talking stick. I think the problem is the training of the cops, because I've seen, many episodes in my life. I came from a relatively poor neighborhood, and the cops would talk people down. In my neighborhood where I grew up, there was a husband and wife. They had one son, and they would take turns. They would mother away one time and put her in the, cool down overnight, and it was kind of like, Mayberry, right? Here's the cell, go cool down. And so it seemed like the cops in my childhood, which is in the 50s and 60s, had some training in how to talk people down. But now with the tasers, and my husband came home one day from Borders, he said, there was some poor guy coming out of Borders, and he said, I came up, and they were just tasering him over and over and over in that stone to give people heart attacks. And then Sash said something else, stop hurting that man. And then the cops started coming after him, and then the cop said, I'm going to remember you. And I went, what the hell's going on here? And then another time, I had a store in town, and the person that was managing my store wouldn't let my other coworker in, so she called. She won't let me in to come to work. So I went down there, and I came over, and I was talking to the cop, and next thing I know, he said, lady, if you don't stop talking right now, I'm going to arrest you. And I went, whoa. And I'm thinking, what did I say? I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to get tasered. So I walked away because it was like all I could do because I didn't want to say one more word. So anyway, I think the problem is the cops and their training. So I'm gonna stop and pass the stick. Karen, would you like to take the stick? And you can either respond to that or pick another subject. Okay, I'm going to stop that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I'm going to respond to it because I think it's terrible about the racism, and I think that my Robert, my galactic forever partner, he would always say, that there are parts of the South that never recovered from the Civil War. I'm sorry, Texas kind of borderlines on the South and the Southwest, but and it's not any certain part of the United States. So I'm not talking about that because I'm not prejudiced with any part of the United States, but I do think it's terrible. And but there's another thing. What are they going to do when the blue people come in and some of our friends that are different colors? There's not only brown, black, or white. There are other colors. And if we can't deal with these, it really shows how far behind we are. And so it's my belief that if we awaken and let those energies and frequencies elevate through the higher consciousness, through meditation, and I'm going to talk later about what higher consciousness is, or maybe I should do it now. But the word consciousness means you're conscious about what you see that's around you and where you are. That's your conscious, like you're looking wherever you are inside on the earth plane, the television, the lights, the outside. That's the 3D conscious. And the systems aren't working here. It's not going to happen here. What the person wants to obtain in the elevation of higher consciousness and understanding through those magical doors are not going to take place on the earth plane. This is where we've come in to do our lessons that we picked before we ever came into a human form. And desiring to seek and asking questions, okay, what happens after this? Where do we go? What do we do? Well, they say heaven. Well, what is heaven? What does this mean? But nobody of the masses really want to seek and ask questions about this. We're still in a minority, all of us who are in this field and the cosmic consciousness field. And we've come here to, now's the time, now's really the thick of it, to help people understand what consciousness is and how they can learn to get there, because everybody can do it. I mean, that's what Jesus said when he came in here, is that he could do it and others could do it better. I mean, nobody's any better than anybody else. It's just we all have to get to a place where we realize that the 3D is not going to be what makes it happen. It's important. We love it. We have a lot of good things to obtain and to give on this level of consciousness, but it's not going to happen here. And that's why I think a lot of these issues are happening, and it's going to get stronger unless we can go in and lift and awaken and help the people who really don't understand what a lot of this means. So that's my talk on it. And I totally agree with you. I think a lot of the police officers, I think they're great. but I also think they have a lot of anger, and whatever they didn't work out in their lessons or their origin or whatever before they came into this plane, it's triggering something in them, and they're transitioning or they're projecting on the victim. So that's my belief, Janet. I can say more.
Oh, okay.
But
so are you yielding the rest of your time, or you have another minute? Do you want to complete, or do you want to yield your time?
Well, I can say that I think that people like you and TJ, me, and many others, there's still a lot of us, are here to teach people who are interested in how to wake that part up inside them about the questions from the invisible world. Let's call it the invisible places we can't see. And I'm really on fire with that today. So I think that we can stop this. I don't think that it has to be this way. We don't have to let this racism, this cruelty, this criminalism, this abuse. It's a ultimate of bullying, whether it's individualized or group or whatever. We are in a bullied society, and it's got to stop. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Janet.
Well, thank you. That was perfect. You're out of time.
I'll get off.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to pass it to TJ, the talking stick. So, TJ, it's your turn for the next 5 minutes. If you're complete at any point, you can say, I yield the rest of my time, but go ahead and start right now. You can finish this topic or use this one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is Theresa J. Morris, and I'm running for that's not it. Okay. Let's see. Regarding, this is Janet Carol Lessin of Hawaii that you just heard speaking, folks, on my channel. And we've invited Karen Gresham Nickell, and I did not do a proper beginning on my show, so I want to apologize for the last few minutes. Not for Janet or Karen, or the 5 minutes I've been given, but just so I hadn't. Yeah, I apologize to my ladies. And we are trying to do something wonderful here. And right now, Janet is going to do her best to get us organized because that's what she is. She is my ACO event manager in my mind, and she does a really good job of it, especially with 8 years of putting up with me. But I'd like to talk about our human security because I have worn a uniform. I've been law enforcement, criminal justice. I've been trained in arson, fraud, subrogation, and I have been trained by the United States of America. And I was fortunate enough to wear Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and a few Black Ops, and as even a civilian in GS status. So I understand the significance of having definitions of international security and human security. And it's very much a way of life for me because I believe in what America stands for. I grew up saying I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. Now, I made one mistake, and justice for all, because I don't say it anymore. But I used to say that every day when I went to school. And I wish we had that back in America, pledged to the flag, because so many people don't understand the colors and what it means or why we are loyal to a country or what it means to be American or to have pride in our government, in our United States of America, and to our history. But human security is an emerging paradigm for understanding global vulnerabilities because we have grown into a country that is part of a global existence. So human security, human sovereignty, human freedom. Janet, I don't know if it's me or you, but I don't know. I just think we're all working together, and Karen too. And I may not say it as eloquently as these ladies, but I've always had I'm the oldest of 7 kids, born in Monroe, Louisiana, raised in Houston, Texas. And after I spent about 20 years being married and having kids, I went back into the government and got to travel the world. And I went to Portugal and Spain. I didn't get to go to Brazil, but I went to Japan and UK. I've been all over the world, and I enjoyed doing what I did. But regarding humans and humanity and dignity, I was treated very well in all countries, especially in Japan. But, you know, the way that we conduct ourselves has a lot to do with it. And I was listening to the George Floyd funeral on TV, CNN, and I too listened to Don Lemon and on CNN. My mother was an MSNBC believer, and she was a big Obama fan and told me that President Obama would be in, and he was mixed, and my granddaughter's mixed. And the man that went to get my dinner, this is, I would say, predominantly white. I don't know statistically, but I hope the disclaimer played tonight on the show. But he's black, and my granddaughter is half his, and she is beautiful skinned. The browning of America before Mother didn't even know that her granddaughter was going to be half black. I don't believe. I don't remember, but Mother passed. Well, maybe she did, yeah, because let's see, Kaylee just turned 13, and so Mother died in 2011. So yeah, so she must have been born. So it's hard for me to remember that because I miss my mom. She's on the other side, like Karen said, maybe in heaven. But speaking
He's
just
probably right
locally
with you.
for my, no, that's fine. I love all the people on the other side that have left us in this dimension paradigm. But I would like somehow to see in my lifetime that the change for the global good, for national security, military security, and no matter what color, red, yellow, black, and white, he is precious in his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world.
Can you hear that timer?
Girl. No.
Can you hear
the
timer?
I'll stop.
Okay,
thank
you. Let me add that. Okay, let me stop it. Okay. How do you stop it?
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
I'm sorry I interrupted.
I got it now. Yeah, well, we're not supposed to talk over each other. We're learning how to. The exercise is to learn two things: not to talk over the other people, to let them say they're full, and to be aware how long-winded we all are. We all think everything we say is so important. We just keep talking. So just be aware of, it's kind of like when, like you said, Madam Speaker, the Congress, they get them 10 minutes, and you get 10 minutes, and then they put the gavel down, your time is up. And if they yield it, they go, I yield to the next person.
On my computer, I started at 7:27. 28, 29, 30, 31. It's just now 7:32, and you took up some of my time. So there. Yeah.
No, I have a 5-minute timer.
Just so you know.
I have a 5-minute timer on my iPhone, so I'm not looking at a clock. I just hit start, and then it goes bloop, bloop. Okay, so
and I don't
go back
I'm
to
just watching a real clock. I don't even know how to see the time. So
okay. So I'm trusting Mr. Apple here. So I apologize if Mr. Apple's not correct, but I'm doing Mr. Apple. So okay, so now we're passing the talking stick to me, and I'm going to hit start, and it said it's 5 minutes, and I have no idea what I'm going to say. Okay, here we go. So that was great, ladies. So I'm so moved by what's been going on all week. It's been 3-4 months. I quarantined myself early on with the COVID because the ship, the Princess liner, came through, and everybody got off in all 4 major islands. And by the time they got to San Francisco, there were 3,000 people in lockdown in the harbor. And they had, lots of cases, and nobody was letting them on shore. And I went to my husband. I said, "Oh my God, this is it's here in Maui." And I knew there was a delay. They were saying 14 days, but it, I think, and I'm getting some research that it started much earlier. I've had some reports from different people, and they say, I had this thing in November of last year, and I had it in October, and I had it in December. So that was before it broke out in China. So I don't know if we're ever going to get that truth, but there's something that's not being told us. But what really concerned me when everybody started to march was, first of all, I was afraid that they would get hurt because I went through this in 1968, and I'm writing up a short story on how racism has affected me. Can somebody put their phone on mute while somebody else is talking, because I'm getting a lot of feedback. So anyway, or their speaker on mute. So I was afraid. In '68, when Martin Luther King died, I think it was spring, April of 1968, there were 3 places in Pittsburgh that went up in fire. And a few days after the major riot stopped, I walked down with a girlfriend through a district that was still smoldering, thinking that it was not safe to do that. But we decided to do it for some reason. I just followed her blindly. And nothing happened, and just everything was fine. But I remembered Kent State. I remember the '60s. I remember people getting hurt, and I was very concerned about that. And so I tweeted. I'm following all these threads. You know, I get Pelosi, I get Trump, I get all these people on tweet. I follow them, and so their threads come into my phone or my iPad, and then I will tweet back. Sometimes I'll just retweet because I agree with what they're saying, and sometimes I'll add my 2 cents. So what I did was I said, please, I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want to see more killing. I just hate violence now at 66 years of age. It's like it hurts me when someone else gets hurt. I guess I'm so connected to spirituality and consciousness. Like, it's almost personal when someone else gets hurt. And so I said, back in the day, I used to sing Martin Luther King's "We Shall Overcome," back in the 60s and 70s for the Vietnam era and all the people getting assassinated back then. We would do, there were all kinds of peace songs. And I said, please just Google the peace songs, start with Martin Luther King's "We Shall Overcome," and add a couple of peace songs. Bring some guitars in, and then please don't keep walking up to the police, because I saw what they were doing in Washington. They were going up to the police, and the police were backing up, and it was like, you know, somebody's going to panic. Usually somebody or a provocateur at Kent State just came in and shot the first shot, and within seconds there were 4 beautiful young people dead. And then, of course, they had that song "4 Dead in Ohio" by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. So I was just terrified that there was going to be another incident of that, and I'm sure we're going to get those stories. But then yesterday I looked and I saw somebody singing "We Shall Overcome," followed by a peace song, and everybody was sitting down, and some of them even laid down because they do that "I Can't Breathe." So they stopped being aggressive towards the police. So and then the police, it's like you can't fight fire with fire. You have to really, at some point, just go like Gandhi. Gandhi was passive, not aggressive, and of course those riots were in, his passive. Okay, I am done. I will pass the talking stick to Karen. Of course, you can do your own subject or answer this. Over to you, Karen.
I need to think about this. I can continue a little bit with this. I think it's very important. I think that it's the old song by Jackie DeShannon, "What the World Needs Now is Love." That came to me just now. And we really do. And the hurting, and for the children that are coming up in the world right now, the babies, the children, and they're coming into a very hard time. I've had a couple of parents that are my patient clients, and were worried about this very subject, about their grandchildren. And I said, well, I know it's really, from the earth level, it's really hard. It's really terrible what about school will be opening pretty soon and so forth, and how do children do with masks and this, that, and the other. And I said, well, I can see how you feel that way. But I feel that these children, everything is divine, but by what I believe and what I see. It didn't just happen this way. There's a reason that these particular children are here at this time. And I think they're strong, probably stronger than we were, and can handle it, and are here because it's supposed to be, and they will be protected. And I do believe that this is going to come to an end. I feel like that we're going to get past this. But that's what's so important, to let people learn how to be multidimensional, those places where we can't see physically, and learn how to work there, and we can get the results down here in the physical. It's called synchronicities. It's kind of like seeing the dots and seeing the picture, or having a crossword puzzle and seeing the pieces as you put together, and it makes a picture. And so eventually this will happen, so you'll have your validation from the physical plane about the information you were working on and got from the invisible, from the dimensions you can't see, we'll call it that, higher consciousness levels. And I think that that's important. But in order for people to do it, you can't just understand it. I know people right now who understand it extremely well, and in many ways better than me, but they don't live it. But you have to live it and work it to live in order to have the results come out on the physical plane. And so I think it's important, because I think a lot of the repetition we see over and over again about these race riots and the police and abuse and all the confusion and chaos, it just continues like a circle over and over and over again. And so we need to step out into these other levels and learn, but have a desire, because unless you have a desire to seek or ask questions, you don't do it, because you believe in what you see on the physical plane. And so that's what I think is important to do, is to, I know I'm working with some of my students right now through art, like art therapy, and just telling them, in fact, and we do it virtually, I'll just say take a sketchboard, take a sketch pad, and just, get 3 Sharpie colors and just give yourself 3 minutes and just do a quick picture. It's not a piece of art. It will be, could be. And they do it, and it's amazing what comes out from their thoughts that they can see from that they created. So I'm just thinking of ways that I can help the people who are coming to me, and who you all, I know you all help. I mean, you're fantastic, and so are you, TJ. My goodness. I mean, my students just love to listen to this, to our show, because we're real. I try to be real. I mean, I don't want to be phony. I can't stand it. We have to be normal and real, and, we're here. So that's all I have to say. I know it sounds like I'm repeating the same thing, and I am, because probably I feel very, very passionate about this whole thing. It's time to wake up, because pretty soon there's going to be something even bigger come in, and we need to give them a peaceful awakening, a peaceful welcome, and those are our ET friends. They will come in the physical, but let's give them a good soft landing. Okay.
Okay, that was perfect. Out of time. Okay, you're done. Okay, TJ, passing the talking stick to you. You can continue the topic or choose another one. Here we go.
All right. Well, I lived in Kentucky, folks, and barbecue is a big, big deal when I lived in Texas. And also I found it odd in Kentucky. So one year I sponsored chili cook-off, 2003, with another girl, Judy McIntyre. Anyway, she was in the Air Force and I was in the Navy, but we got a lot of press, television stuff, because we did it for the county, and I got my first nonprofit. The federal government said, because I was doing it as a event for the county, or in the county at the park, that I'd get a nonprofit. So we had our first ACE nonprofit, and recognized by the federal government. Of course, I met a gentleman named David McAtee. I think he was from Atlanta, but he was called the Barbecue Man. I had, not just for chili cook-off, but he reminded me, I don't know how he found out about me, but he wanted to come to my event. And he called me, make sure he wanted a trophy, because I had barbecue too, and he had a stand he brought over. But he wanted to make sure he got his trophy, so I made sure he got his trophy. Real sweet. It's just something they didn't cost me much, and I just paid for them out of my pocket. But he got killed recently, and I'm really sad because he's one of the sweetest black men I'd ever met. And with the name Thurmond growing up, be honest with you, I know what prejudice is, even though I was raised by a black woman in my house because my mom had to work. So we always had Alice, and when her son wanted her to go to Chicago, it was during the time when I was getting to be 10 to 12. So he didn't want his mother working with us, even though he grew up right there where I did in West Monroe, Louisiana. And she wouldn't go. And she had to drink out of a different, I'll never forget when I was in A&P in Monroe. And I was little then, about, 6 or 7. But I got mad at the manager because he wouldn't let her drink out of water fountain. The black one was broke. So, we got a drink. It was real hot in the summer. And she went with us to the store because Mama had like 4 of us then, 3 or 4, maybe a baby. But I always remember how black people were treated and how I was treated because my name was not only did I have white skin or brown, I was always tan, but they called me white Anglo-Saxon Protestant when I was born. So I guess, if I was among a bunch of black people and they met a white person, I'd be the one killed, even though I have a lot of trust that we're not going to be fighting about skin color. And most of the people in my family, even though we're mixed and blended, we don't talk about really religion. We say Jesus pays the bills because that's what my daughter always said. But, I've got about 4 Bibles in the stack over there I'm looking at. I'm not saying I'm not God-fearing, but you can believe in a higher power or not. But I'll tell you one thing about all the people I met. I didn't grow up in bad places like I've heard or seen when I traveled as a truck driver. But I know it doesn't matter. And one thing that Alice taught me, God rest her soul, her name was Alice Taylor of West Monroe, Louisiana, if anybody listens to me, and I know they do in Louisiana. And Don Lemons is from Louisiana. I'm an independent, and he's an independent as far as votes go. Now, these people that don't know us, 3 women, you can think what you want, but there's a time when I wished I would have been any color but white and had any name but Thurmond. But everybody has their own crosses to bear is the way we always said it. And I put on here tonight, I've begun my spiritual journey with certain friends in 2020. So I hope that my friends can be above color, race, creed, even politics, because I don't like to discuss politics and religion. And I may be dumb in some ways, but believe it or not, I was always thought of rather intelligent. And so you can't judge people by the sound of their voice. I don't care what anybody says. You make them pick up like we do in the psychic field. I have the psychic network. You can pick up vibrations, but you don't judge a book by its cover, and you don't judge a person by their skin, okay? And you sure don't judge them by the way they sound. You don't know you don't know where they've been. You don't know. You haven't walked in their shoes. You haven't lived their life. So I grew up not real wealthy. We were, I guess, we weren't like the Beaver Cleavers. Our back in the day was who was it? Ricky Nelson, the Nelsons. And I'm dating myself, but anyway, I'll leave it at that. I don't know how much I've taught, but
I think that around the time I've got to get back to that for some reason the clock didn't sound. Okay, you're out of time. Okay, wow, thank you, Theresa. That was great. That felt very heart-centered, and I think that's one thing that's very important to get out of our heads and connect with our hearts and see who's in our life and who's important, and do the best we can in our short little time on this earth. So I'm hoping, and I've got to follow this thread. I really am getting some hints that things are changing on a core level that it hasn't changed over all these years. We've been, blending and browning of America and starting to get to know our neighbors. I was thinking about my own situation, and I was in a black and white culture in Pittsburgh. It was mostly black and white. I remember the first time I saw a black lady, I wish my parents would have taught me about different races because I was home alone with Mom and everybody was white. But I went to the G.C. Murphy's Five and Dime store. I remember I was really tiny. It was under my mother's skirt. I was literally like crawling under there and hiding. I was so shy. And I looked up and I saw these legs that were very, very dark, black. And I peeked out from under my skirt and I looked up and this poor woman from head to toe was very, very black. And I didn't know that people could be in that color. And I started to cry horribly. And my mother was puzzled, like, what is going on? And I got her off so the lady wouldn't hear. I go, Mommy, what's wrong with that lady? How is she hurt? Is she in pain? Is she burned? Is she burned? And my mother, no, she didn't make fun of me. She could have made fun of me, but she just said, no, some people are different colors. So I think we really need to start integrating because it was very separate back then. But one of my secret wishes was to be in a culture that wasn't so polarized. After the assassination of Martin Luther King, and I finally went to Penn State University, and there in the middle of State College, I started hanging out with people of different race, colors, creeds, religions, orientations, and I was really ecstatic. And so I always wanted to go to Hawaii. So Hawaii, when I moved here in 1993, I experienced racism for the first time because I guess I was white privilege, right? Although I don't know about all that because we were poor as poor. And I remember that my food had to be rationed. My dad was a mailman. He had a wife and 3 kids. He never got a mortgage. The house was left to him. He couldn't afford much, $200 cars. And so when I got a bag, I liked Oreos. I had to ration them so they would last 2 weeks before the next payday. And I remember my mom had to food and, she would put it on the plate, and then there were no seconds, You ate, that was it, no seconds. So I was really undernourished. My husband was living in California and had fresh air, and he grew to be 6 foot tall. And he said, well, part of why you're so short, not besides genetics, is that you were half starved your childhood. You were malnourished. So anyway, so I finally I came to Hawaii, and when I moved into Oahu, oh shoot, I didn't start the timer. Anyway, I'll end this in just a minute here. I was shocked to have the discrimination. Now over in Oahu, it's Polynesian, Asian mix. Sometimes it was reversed. They liked me more because I was blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And sometimes it was the other way. I had a woman I worked with I couldn't understand, and she came over to me and she says she hated me because I was different looking. and I went home and I oh, I'm sorry. I said, I think you're beautiful. And she was very beautiful, Asian. And so when I got home, I got fired. I got let go from the temp agency. So it was really shocking to experience that. And then I met my husband. I moved to Maui. Now, Maui is very diverse. You have every religion here, every color, everything. You have the hippies. You have it's a blue state. There's some conservatives, but you just have the whole thing here. So I've been here 24 years, and I love it. And but what I noticed recently, I did a little experiment. As long as my hair was blonde, people were polite, but when I dyed my hair darker, I wanted to go a little bit darker, then they started to call me Auntie when I went to the store. So I'm older now, I'm 66, and I'd go to the store, and they would go, thank you. But when I started to color my hair, they go, thank you, Auntie. So I found a video last night that says all white people are are racist, and I went, oh my God. I think there's a racist part that runs underneath internally in all of us, and we really need to be more sensitive when we're insensitive to other people, and stop, acting out the things that are in our subconscious, and just, correct ourselves. I'm sorry, and say it again with love. So I'm going to pass the talking stick to Karen. Thank you for listening.
Sure, it was beautiful. It's nice. You do such a beautiful job. I see a film, like a movie. I came from a small town in Texas, and it had its beautiful times back in the 50s, 60s, and I'm telling my age too, but I think they were very precious times and very beautiful. I lived in a small town called Glen Rose, and it had a river that ran through the town, and it was just beautiful. And the times were great. And then there were no black people there, and there were probably a lot of racists. And I never thought anything one way or the other. And we saw in Austin, we went to visit some relatives, and one of my relatives, my father's first cousin, had a black lady that lived with them in their house, and she was just as sweet as she could be. And her name was Viola. And she's passed now, and I know she's hearing me right now. But I asked my mother, I said, Viola's different. She said, yeah. I said, she's so sweet. She said, she's a different color, but she's equal. We're all the same. And I had a wonderful mother. And I said, okay, well, that's great. I love Viola. She said, we all love Viola. She's equal. You must always remember this is just a color. And then from there, of course, whenever I was in my 26 is when I went to Brazil on that project for 8 years. And I lived in Rio. And in Rio, that part of Brazil has a lot of culture from Africa. And so everybody is black and white, and there's no racism there, really. And it's just some of the best Brazilian music there is from the black people. That, and I hate to use a color because I think we're all the same. I feel it. I've never felt a racist feeling at all. In fact, I'm totally against it. And but that's what and then whenever I moved to Europe and was there, I didn't notice it in Italy either. It wasn't. I never saw it around. I'm sure it was. I didn't see it in France. But it seems to be more country, and we're so blessed because we have such a beautiful country. I mean, I think it's great what TJ said about honoring our country, and I totally believe it in every way. I think we're very, very grateful, should be very grateful to be an American. And so that's, in relation to the racism and the chaos that we're all experiencing, that's all I have to say really about it. I think that this is a time that we can all come to realize, and I agree with you, Janet. I think that this is a time where people are coming together more. They're being more sensitive about the races. They're seeing more everybody the same. I think there's an advancement in what's going on here. I think it's positive. I think it could be good. I think people have to get out of their head and get into their heart and their feelings, and most people don't like to do that because they don't like to deal with it. But in order to see all the other places and go to those special places and get the good synchronicities, we have to go through those intense feelings to cleanse all that out. And I think we're kind of doing it as a country. I believe that. And this is the dark part of the family of origin, we should say, maybe call it or whatever. But I think things are going to get better. I really believe that. I don't know what else to say in relation to this subject. I think that people think about this moment to moment. I don't think it's just.
You can talk about whatever you want to. You don't have to do this subject. You can talk about whatever you want to. Yeah.
Well, I think, that this is on all of our minds all the time because most of us watch the television all the time, the news, just to see what's happening or that sort of thing. I do. I watch it a lot. And, in fact, I wondered why Ancient Aliens hadn't been coming on anymore. So maybe they'll come back. But, no, I think that this is a transition. We had to make a transition in order to help the country, in order to help and to get bigger and to get more evolved. And the IT systems, are getting more and more advanced. And thank God for Derek. My goodness. I can't praise him enough.
Okay. Your time is up. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
You're ready to pass it to Theresa.
Oh, absolutely. I love to hear TJ talk.
Okay, TJ, you can do a different topic or whatever you want to choose, or continue this one. I'm starting your clock. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. Maybe the second hour, we had a lot of getting used to talking with each other, but I told people we're going to set a tone, I hope, for getting to know you guys' soul. Oh, my goodness, that was loud. That was from one of my other phones. But the Department of Justice has civil rights, and you remember in 1964, we did have something set up where, at least growing up, I remember from when we got this law enforced on civil rights that, whether we use it correctly or not, but it was the 7th, it's B22, that's 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So I did look it up, but I'm not going to go into the details, folks. You can look it up yourself in the Department of Labor, but you'll remember how it changed as far as discharge pay, I'll just read these little things. Fringe benefits, job training, classification, referral, and other aspects of employment on the basis of race, color, religion, or national origin. The law is enforced by the Civil Rights Center, but the non-discrimination based on race, color, national origin. And we heard a lot about that growing up, and unexpected in the United States, but change came, and we give a lot of people credit, and this is a time when we know different people a lot of people helped build this. We got this country started based on the fact that we wouldn't want to pay taxes to the king and queen, I guess you could say, over in the old country. Now, some of my relatives came from Ireland during the potato famine. I know that. And, so I know I'm part Irish. I know I'm part English. I know I'm Nordic because Thurmond came from Thurber, but it meant Thor's protection. I went over in Europe and looked it up myself back in the day. Now it's easier. We have the Internet. You don't have to go track it down because so much of the intelligence, the information, if correctly, you got to process it, is in the computer. So I'm all about free speech and sharing intelligence and education. But the civil rights, the thing is we enact them, but we need to enforce them. So, we do that a lot with our HIPAA laws, and a lot of us don't know what HIP, well, the HIPAA law, you think about your medical records, but now I know the richest man in the world bought all the ones where my daughter and mine were kept with the Ascension Center, our Sacred Heart hospitals, basically, but it's the Ascension records. But I want to see us evolve, and I think we need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So people are going to have to decide if they want to define how we're going to create an association that helps each other. And I don't see why it can't be like my black and white and brown. We're Mexican, we're white, we're black, but why we can't all get along since we do our best. If we fight, it's over something stupid. But we're family, we're blood, and it's all intermixed. So it's like Karen says, really, if you think about it, we're not from here anyway. Seedling, you go back to your parents and their parents and their parents and their parents. You got to go back. We used to say 5 generations, and when I was going, back to do genealogy, but I was a Latter-day Saint and Mormon for a while too, and they were the only ones trying to keep all the good records. But there's going to be saying you want to go all the way down to the preliminaries because I'm an independent. But you got to decide, is your vote important? Is your vote important? It doesn't matter what your skin, but what do you think? What is your opinion? If you feel like a lot of people can't, it's been taken away, they can't vote. But for those of you that can, we need to if you've got a human body, I think you ought to be able to vote. That's my personal opinion. But I think everybody should have a vote in every country in the world. And, they take dictators out, but we need to think, are our leaders honoring, are they talking about race, color, religion, the laws that enforce our civil rights? And so I'm going to do what I can to help human security. So I'll pass it. I don't know if my time's up or not.
You're almost
Feels
up.
like
Okay,
it.
good. Let me cancel that. Okay. So I'm devoted to figuring this out on some way how to improve this and all the other things that that are affecting humanity and this planet negatively. I've identified my higher self soul mission, and I find myself working on this in my sleep, and I wake up and I tell my husband, I've been working all night, and I was working on this problem and that problem. So I'm going to look at these YouTubes and add them to the show page. But I remember years ago I saw a thing where Morgan Freeman said, I'm not African. So one of the assumptions, and I'm going to do some articles and research this myself, is like the history of slavery. I know from my research into the ancient alien stuff and the Anunnaki is that we were created as a slave race. So everybody that's a human being was created for the purpose of slaving. And the Anunnaki created us back in the mines of South Africa, and Michael Tellinger's got all this information. He lives down in South Africa, and he's identified Enki's mines and Enki's lab, and so there's some verification on the Sumerian texts. And so, but how did we get from there to here? And I've read a lot of history books. My husband has a library with thousands of books, and he's a history buff, but he's also a college professor, and so I ask him questions about this time and that time, and so humanity has a history of conquering, going from one place to another place, and sometimes they're different colored people, and they're different, religions. Sometimes they're the same, and it doesn't make any sense. But they mark people sometimes like cattle. They put things to identify them as slaves, and so they come and conquer. And now you're a slave. And then we went all through the history doing this back and forth across the planet. But somehow this modern slave movement, I know there's a guy named Wilberforce. I have it queued up. Black Slavery, the Truth. William Wilberforce, and one of my former roommates, Wilberforce was her ancestor. So England, there was a wonderful movie about, they ended slavery long before the United States. The United States has always been behind. We were one of the last ones to get rid of slavery. But Morgan Freeman, he said, I've got to rewatch this, that I'm not African. So I went, wow, that's interesting. What does he mean by that? So he, if I recall correctly, he said, well, there were more people here that were black, meaning their skin was black, but also that had the features that were indicated they were from Africa origin, right? Because in South America, and you might have encountered that when you were down there, Karen, there were the Olmecs, statues of the Olmecs, and they looked like they came right from Africa. But the Olmecs had been there thousands of years. So we had a global society. So I think that's what Morgan is saying, that the records about how many people were brought over as slaves does not match the amount of ships that were here in the population. So there was a much bigger Native American black culture than we ever could imagine. So I think he was trying to somehow make a point there, and I've got to go watch it again. I'm so sorry, I don't remember exactly the point. So anyway, what is the solution? How can we get to the next reality where we are accepting and tolerant of each other? And so there was a YouTube earlier, I wish I would have grabbed it, where I think it was a young white girl walks up to Al Sharpton, and she said something really cool, and I forget what it was, something about, I don't know, about balancing and equality, and she was like a young girl, under 10 or something. So I'm going to go see if I can find that. So he quoted her, and so this generation, this young generation, and I don't know what generation they are. I'm a baby boomer, and then we have the Generation X, and we have the millennials, and I don't know. I haven't kept track of what but this new generation, I think they're finally getting it. My hopes are in the next 50 years or 20 years or 10 years. I hope sooner rather than later. We finally, it's like, and this is very loaded sentence, but it's like I don't see color, but sometimes I'm talking to someone and I don't see color, and then I go, oh, that's right, they're black, or I have a very dark Native American friend, and I mean, you could open up an encyclopedia for Native American, and his picture would be there. And he's beautiful. I think he's absolutely beautiful soul, beautiful person. And I've done what's called a tantric puja, where you have 100 people in an inner circle and 100 people in an outer circle. And when you go past each other, you just look in each other's eyes, and you see it. You see everybody's genetics in them, and you see their soul. And usually, I can only make it about 50 people, and then there's just tears going down my eyes, and I'm looking for a Kleenex because my nose is running. So I'm going to end with that. But that's how beautiful everybody is. If you can really take the time and talk with someone and look in their eyes and get to know them, I think it really is just so incredibly beautiful. It's amazing how beautiful humanity is. Okay, I'm going to stop. Pass to Karen. Your turn, Karen.
Oh, okay. I agree with you on that's beautiful. I don't have any more to say about racism or all this. I do have something. I do have something to say about spirituality, religion, belief in the higher self, and trusting the self. Meaning we have to trust ourselves, and this is all part of seeing our own power, meaning power of our value of self and our ability to unconditionally love ourselves. I think that there's a religion issue too, as well as the racial one and all that, and I think that as humans on this planet, we need to respect everybody's religion and respect there's only one source, there's only one God, the source, the cosmic force is God. And there's only one. There's only one. But there are many ways that people take this. And I think that we should accept and love those people for how they take the meaning of God. And I know that the light, is that like a computer?
My phone is dinging. I'm sorry. My phone is dinging.
That's okay. I thought it was
Ignore.
I thought it was maybe that's telling me to be quiet. I don't know.
No, but I'll tell you when it's the alarm.
No, I think that that's very important. I really do. I think that people should be, that's a big story. It's just a big subject, and I don't know if I can handle it. But I personally have a respect for everybody's religion from love, whether they're Catholic, Protestant, Hindu, Arabic, Jewish, the whole thing. And there's good in everything. I mean, there's something great and excellent about the Kabbalah, for example. That's Jewish mysticism. And then there's so much about Sufism in the Arabic culture. And within the Christian, there's Jesus was the one. I mean, I pray to him every day. And I see him differently. He came here to deliver a beautiful message and to try to get the picture out hugely. And you can get results from when you pray to him. You can get results if you know the synchronicities pretty much quickly, like instantly if the force blends. And everybody can do this. And if you use him as your, there's also Archangel Michael. There are many others, but I just named a few. But I think that that's a very important thing that we have to do that's going to help us get probably to those higher consciousness levels, is to realize that we do have these ascended masters and ascended ones that are unconditional loving and can show us how to get there, that we need to embrace and open our hearts to come into our lives, where we stop the bickering, where we stop the narcissistic trickle down corporate stuff to the greed and the money. You know, the bottom line to everything is money, and that's sad because that's a material that's totally 3D, and it's made us depend on that in order to get our freedom out there. So we need to somehow. Wouldn't it be great if we could barter? And if there were real, there were honest energies that kept us in the means to keep the barter. Now barters, my husband always said, the barter system never works between two people. Somebody always feels like they get the short end of the stick. And he was right. And I tried it a couple of times, and it almost needs to be a higher energy in there to weigh it if people are going to do that. And I don't think we're there, but that would be wonderful if we could live like that. It's kind of a fantasy. But that's all I have to say. And I'm ready to pass the baton. I just think that we also need to include that.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. PJ, you've got the talking stick. You can talk about whatever you want to. We're free flow here. Take it away.
Okay. Well, I'd like to talk about emotional intelligence because in order to fix this problem, we're going to have some solutions. And regardless of how I was trained militaristically or educationally, or the fact that I was privileged because that's what I've been told because I was in white skin by a black man when I was in Hawaii, and I was it was in a discussion. It was a debate of some men that were alcoholics, and my husband at the time, I worked for the United States Navy, and I was in personnel information security, but I met the man. He's deceased now, but he was in the GS-13 type, but he ran a halfway, and the black man told me I was privileged. So I asked him to explain that. So he explained to me, being born white and educated, that I had a responsibility. And he talked from a place of, I still have the vision, as Karen says, she sees visions, but even though he's passed and my husband's passed, I can see the black man sitting when you walk down steps in this old house in Oahu, on Pahaku Street in Oahu, where we had the halfway house. But we had the men that would be behind bars in prison trying to get back in, staying in our house. We had like 13 rooms. But this man told me, and I didn't know how to take it because I wasn't in my uniform. I was my husband's wife, but because we ran the house for the men that were trying to get back into the prison because they were fed better, we hired a chef that wore white clothes with a big hat. And but he told me, and then I explained to him I was raised by a black lady that instilled some beautiful things I couldn't get from anybody else, because she told me she educated me about, because she lived over in the shotgun houses in the black area. And back then, when I was little, they called it in town, and I won't say the word because she taught me why it offended. She said anybody could be an N-word, and y'all know what I mean. So she taught me emotional intelligence, and she taught me how to be smart, and she taught me how to feel things. My grandmother, bless both of them, Elizabeth, Sarah, and Sarah, they were Sarahs, but they taught me to be spiritual, not religious, but to be spiritual. Neither, they went to church occasionally, but they'd dress up, an old lady, long down mid-length, and my great-grandmother my great grandmother she was a Richmond. She was a school teacher in Missouri to Indians, but she was always helping people, and they helped gypsies coming through in Louisiana, Monroe. But the emotional intelligence part of it is what we're going to have to deal with. Now, we can have theories about everything, but part of it's being educated. Al Sharpton did point that out. And by the way, that little girl, he said, came up and said something like War and Peace or Peace and Justice, I think is what she said.
Yes.
He was
Peace and Justice.
Peace and Justice. Yeah. So because he was ready to, take offense like I'm talking about I've had to do, and it goes and it doesn't matter. But I was discriminated against while I was in Hawaii. And then I'm going to tell you real quick, and then I'll let it alone because I believe it's about us getting along, emotional intelligence, and that we've got to fix this because we have to educate everybody, which I think Al Sharpton did a darn good job. But I know he had to use what we call sound bites, and Janet wants me to learn more about communication and sound bites to help her in the future. But I'm just telling you, from my personal experiences, I've got a mixed model, and emotional intelligence is something we all need to look at in psychology, and you can look it up on Wikipedia. Emotional intelligence, EI, and there's emotional leadership, which is part of the solution. That's EL, emotional quotient, EQ, and emotional intelligence quotient, EIQ. And there's going to be psychology involved, university. A lot of people say that, only the devil's in that, and a lot of groups don't believe in anything to do with psychiatry, or healing in the but we are all about our conscious, and I'd like to, maybe in the last 30 minutes or so, we can talk about our higher selves and coming to the planet, since I've died a couple of times, and Janet and I were talking about consciousness and our soul and self. And, I've been doing a lot of soul searching because I've been sick at my stomach over all this, so I know people are empathic. I am a hermit. I'm now a widow. I'm going to be 69. I'm not looking forward to being 70, but I talked to a good friend of mine, Newton Schwartz, I met him in 1970, right before I was pregnant, and he took me in and let me manage a place in Houston when I was barefoot and pregnant, and I stayed that way, folks. So I've been called dumb and barefoot and pregnant, had to go get a GED, but I started making straight A's. I may not have cared too much in elementary and high school. I made A's and B's and C's maybe. If I made a D, it was usually in something stupid because I just didn't apply myself because I was a social creature. But as I got older, I learned introvert and extrovert, and I took tests, and I would have been an excellent judge according to the university test I took. But I did wind up at the university for all you international people. But I've been part of American Culture International Relations, and I'm proud. And I was an ambassador of goodwill for Houston, and I've come a long way globally. And I drove a truck coast to coast. I've had a lot, but I'd like to talk about the soul. And Janet and Karen and me, and if we have a different way to talk, but I'm going to ask people if they want to join me as friends, if they want to talk about who they really are, their awareness, and the inner self that knows when you close your eyes or when you're in trouble. Who do you go to? Who do you pray to, or do you? Are you an atheist, agnostic? I'm a theocrat, I believe. And I heard one of the men in the George Floyd down in Houston. I lived in Houston, so I know where Floyd was from, George III. But I'm going to say this, because this is so symbolic in my world that I work in extraterrestrial with avatar masters and ascended masters. And having died, having firsthand experience with those on the other side and in groups, extraterrestrial groups here on the planet, we come and go as hybrids. But as we take on the avatar master world, one of the things you can see is the re-symbolized in our Ace Folk-like group is George Floyd was symbolized as a black man, his tainer. But do you think he agreed to what he did at the higher levels because we agreed, or do we not? But these are things we can do as armchair philosophers. But he's like a black Jesus, and the poor men on top of him could be, all five of those men could be all called to duty to represent that because it's changed the world. It has changed the world, and it's not going to stop. So emotional intelligence, folks. Okay.
I'm sorry. I got booted. I got back in. Probably time's up. I didn't quite catch what you said. Sounds great. I'm so sorry. I was booted. And Karen, are you still on? You didn't get booted, did you?
I'm still here. No.
Okay. Sorry about that. I got booted, but I'll have to listen to that in the show. Okay. So. You had mentioned something you want to talk about. It is the last half hour of the show. What was the subject you want us to focus on the last half hour of the show? Do you guys have a preference, both of you? We can do a round where we all answer the same question.
I was mentioning emotional intelligence, but I'm sure Karen and her groups, spiritual groups in her community and hypnotizing. And, we could talk about the intelligence, but also the validity of our soul. Because the three of us have a higher level of evolvement. We don't believe we're better than it. It's quite the opposite. We're talking about lower level containers and skin, but emotional. How we deal with emotions, and I've seen a lot of people fight. And one thing about this time on the planet, I'm not going to blame the president because he's my commander in chief, and I'm sorry I wore a uniform, but we all have this thing, and this medicine. One of the guys is talking about him. But what's happened is, we don't do politics and religion, but we do spirituality, and I'd like to talk from the soul level. We all got a soul, folks, and I would hate to be the president of the United States of America because that's the most powerful position on this planet. But I get to be above all that. You could say a lot higher levels in intelligence, okay? Community. I get to be a soul that's died and come and died. So they call those ascension masters. So I'm going to go back to Janet. But ascension masters and the awareness intelligence level, Janet, and I'll mute.
Okay. I'm aware. I don't know exactly how it was, but I did years of therapy and reflection and introspection and working on myself because I'm very emotional and I'm affected by everything. I'm very empathetic, and so I think that's one of the things our poor president is he lacks empathy, and I've been trying to study, how is it that some people are more sociopathic and narcissistic and lack empathy, but the poor people that are in those categories are confused about emotions because all they can do is try to, copy other people's emotions, but they're not really feeling it. And I have a lot of friends that are autistic. They weren't ever diagnosed. They're adults. They're dealing with it. And, they tend to piss me off because, you don't feel me. You don't feel me. But, I've learned to deal with it. And I go, okay, what does that feel like for them that they're not able to feel things like other people can feel? So I have developed some empathy for Trump, and he just doesn't get it. He doesn't feel it. I wish people would help him out somehow, but by the time you're in your 70s, you don't want to be told what to do. So we have to learn how to protect humanity. One of my things in therapy is it's always you have to protect yourself. And if you're a parent, you have to protect your children, and you don't allow them to be abused. So we have a society that's suffering from PTSD because as a society, we are not selecting leaders that are not sociopathic. And that happened with Hitler, that we had Napoleon, we've had Genghis Khan. We have these people that rise to power that really, if you were a conscious civilized civilization where you were objectively finding your leadership based on their qualities and qualifications, they would have to take an emotional intelligence test, and they couldn't even run for office unless they could pass an emotional intelligence test, which shows you the appropriate response in situations. So when I was in college, I forgot to do the timer. Okay, let me look at it. When I was in college, and I never got a degree. I went back after years. Couldn't go when I was young because we had to get my brother, so he didn't have to go to Vietnam. So anyway, long story. But what I learned in Psychology 101, and I had to take psychology 3 or 4 times, and then I married a psychologist. And so is that they have a basic evaluation system. So one of the tests was, what would you do if you murdered someone and then somebody knocked on your door, and I forget, it was like select one of the following. And like one of the options was, well, you'd hide the body, or there's different scenarios. You chop the body up, you would confess, So these these questions can be asked, and then you get a score on your emotional intelligence. And too often or not, I've encountered people that would hide the body and cut it up in pieces and try not to get found out. It's like, whoa, where's your morality, or where is your emotional IQ? So I think that's what we're encountering right now, is someone that is always I call it you get your hand caught in a cookie jar, right? You get caught in the middle of your thing, and it's like, well, we've got this person that's passing the blame. And one of the things I learned from my second husband is he got out of school and he was going home and he wasn't paying attention, and he ran through a stop sign. I mean, a light, a red light, full blaring red light, not even yellow to red, and the cop stopped him. And he just basically said to the cop, "I'm sorry, I screwed up. I wasn't paying attention. School just got out, and I was excited, and I wasn't paying attention." And when you're just honest, you fess up. The cop says, "That's okay, son. I'll let you go. Just don't do it again." So there's something to be said about saying, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I screwed up. I did what the issue now is racism. Yeah, I said something I shouldn't have said. I've done something I shouldn't have done. I'm insensitive." Fessing up, admitting it, and I'm going to do better. I'm going to figure this out. What I've done all my life is, one of the things I did was I lied all my life. I was my default. So why am I lying? Well, when I went through therapy, my life wasn't safe. So I learned to be the world's best liar. And when I went through therapy with my husband, we had gone to California. We did a week intensive, and we kept talking about it all the way home. By the time I was in the airport waiting for my luggage, I was just going, "Oh, I'm such a liar. I'm such a horrible person. Why am I even alive? Why would anybody ever like me?" So there's something about getting down to your core and understanding yourself, and then loving yourself and giving yourself empathy and compassion. And then I'll finish with this. So Howard Stone, I'm going to try to find it. He got on one of the talk shows. He says, I love Trump. He's a friend. And he said, but I decided that I wanted to have a relationship with my daughters. So I went through intensive therapy, and I went, because he's always been kind of rough around the edges, right? And he said, now, I did my family of origin, cultural conditioning, religious programming, and I deprogrammed myself and reprogrammed myself to be a nice human being. And he said, Donald, if you just did this process, you could really have a real authentic relationship with all your children and your wives and everything. And so he implored him to do that. Of course, he didn't do it. But I'm going to pass the talking stick to Karen. Next.
Well, that's interesting. I agree. I, too, have been in therapy since I was 14. And I've been trained, been through a lot. And then I went to training in Canada for 3 months on family of origin. And then I've worked on myself always. And I've learned that it's good to say you're sorry for something we mess up, because it makes ourselves feel good, and it makes nobody's perfect. We all have issues. And I think it's good that we own our stuff, and I think it makes us feel better, and it makes whoever that we've hurt to feel better too. My husband has worked on himself tremendously. Also, the second time around, we had 10 years together from 66 to 76, and then we were separated for 22 years and got back in 2000. And he worked and worked and worked and did tremendous work with his issues too. And we worked it from an emotional point and also from a karmic point, because we knew that neither one of us wanted to keep all this stuff or take it with us when we left this play. And I've had a lot, when Dr. Bormy and I had the office or the clinic, I specialized and did this family of origin stuff with the encounter bats and the primal scream and all this back in the day. And it was really hard on my immune system because I'm an empath. And so I had to really retire from it about 5 or 6 years ago. But it still keeps, people still keep coming to me, and, I can see, and, they'll ask me, and I said, there's a better way to do it. You don't have to do this hard physical therapy anymore. We've all come with issues. We've all come with our caregivers that got us in, whether it's our mother and father biologically or a caregiver, whomever. And so we're here glitches, and we're here to clean that out, and we're here to make peace and work on ourselves. And so, but that's what I've done for years. But with that, when we had the clinic, that's all I did. And it was hard. So I have learned, I guess about 2 years ago, I was given a gift from the universe that we don't have to do this deep work and, whether we're the victim or we're the perpetrator or all that, and go through processing the mother and the father script, or taking a dozen eggs and throwing them at a tree or whatever we do to get that anger out, is that to look at the higher part. And I always tell my students that, the emotions are the key to the higher consciousness, to the love. The love is the key. And in order to get to experience that love, animals are great teachers. They're great healers. They're angels. I think they're angels. And that's really important for to me, for the human interaction with animals. We're animals too. And so I think that we're going through a lot right now, but I feel like there are a lot of people that I have seen in office, or a couple of them, that really get into the feeling aspect of it. I'm kind of surprised. I'm not going to call any names or name anybody, but it's interesting how that works. It's very important for people to get into more of a feeling mode, be more empathic instead of apathetic, and that means getting into the heart chakra and getting more out of the head chakra, or the crown chakra, the left brain. It's important. I mean, the whole brain is the key. But I think all these things that are happening now are awakening intense feelings. It gives us the opportunity to go into those real intense feelings. And sometimes I'll stay up all night long and just feel, and information will come to me. It's not real healthy to do that, but sometimes I do my best channeling in the middle of the night, or the best receiving, the best downloading, whatever. And I take it that I'm in a lesson from the higher teachers, and I listen. I feel like I've been through college studies again, where you study all the way through the night to pass the test the next day. But I think that's important where we are, and I wish that for everybody, because we all came from mothers, fathers, grandmothers who had issues. We've got our own issues, and it's going to be saved through love and through allowing the self to go into those emotional areas and feel. The only thing I am aware of that I think creates a thicker block of density on the earth plane is rage and anger. Now, I always tell my students, my patients, to turn that anger into sad, because that's really what you're doing. You're sad. You're not mad. And mad you may be feeling, but you're really hurt. You're really sad. You're scared. And those can be real good things, like jumping over the diving board. Those are real good motivators, is sad and in pain. Communications, human communications emotionally at this time am I up?
Yes, you're up. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Nope, bye. Okay. Next, TJ.
All right. Soul solution, folks. This.
Wait a minute. You're fading out.
Okay.
Try that again. Next.
Okay. I'm cutting out, huh?
Okay, now you're good.
Am I still cutting out? Okay.
No, you're good now.
Okay. At my age, folks, most of y'all probably were not educated. I mean, with emotional intelligence, okay, because I still see it in, I'm quick to jump myself because it's an emotion. Now, I am born and lived and died and born and lived and died twice, and then the third time, but that's up for, I know I did first time when they took the blood out, second time when I had placenta previa and hemorrhaged with my fourth daughter. But I didn't really learn until I came back and decided to be much more intelligent because I had all this knowledge out of the Akashic field that came rushing into my human. So I realized you don't learn everything in school, but you don't have to die and be up there in space or go through the cosmos to get it. I just was lucky because I could. These women in my college, when I went to learn about this college, how to communicate with humans, it was all about Maslow's theory. But I'll give you a quick rundown, which I'm still learning. We're all students. We're all teachers. We can all help each other. But I've been watching some of my children get beat up by bullies because they don't have control of their educational limits, or they don't think before they react. So one thing I would like to do is have a movement of my friends, if they're going to call themselves my friends, because I believe the greatest recipe in life is your friendship, how to communicate, having emotions with others. And sometimes I jump because my mind starts racing, and I'm so excited that I want to express myself, and I see that as a human trait. But especially since I'm always alone, I now educate myself every day. I do my meditation on my inner work and my awareness. But one thing I always had was deep, deep empathy. And my father and mother and the black lady that raised me, they all had deep empathy. And they cared about each other, and they had self-awareness. And my mother sometimes would react on her anger. My father, I never saw him act out, not once. Never saw my father upset. And that seems funny. I'd be 68 and go back and listen to myself. I wanted to judge my daddy because I was angry at him because him and Mom got a divorce. But I had to live through that. But it wasn't until I came back from death and I learned and went to college and law enforcement, and I had to take childhood development and learn about psychology. And that led me down a lot of reading on psychology. But I didn't, there's a history behind the growth in the 30s, social intelligence, that was Edward Thorndike, and then later developments. But I learned about Abraham Maslow. And I'll never forget Maslow's theory, in food, clothing, shelter, we got to have that. But there's multiple intelligences, not just on this planet. But that concept is so different that I call it ascension age. And I believe that the emergence of emotional intelligence that came up, I was in Mensa meeting, and that's where I met Wayne Dyer at a house in Hawaii. And that was back in 89 to 94 when I was in the military, but I was in Hawaii. But it wasn't until the 90s that emotional intelligence came up in cognition and personality. As we were in the motivational speaking movement, Wayne Dyer, and I met him because I followed him. Somehow God just had me find him. I don't know what else you call it, your higher power if you want. But like I said, I'm a theocrat. I believe in theology and the study of those higher power over us because I've seen them. I hadn't touched them. I didn't get close enough to touch them, but I sure was next to them on the ships and off ships, and my Jesus was on a spaceship. But it's a symbolic term for your Christ. There's been many of them. But the concept of intelligence is coming up, but it wasn't really big until 95. And then when I went to college again in 97, I went in the 70s is when I learned about Abraham Maslow, and then I went through the motivational speaking movement. Deepak Chopra, I met him in person, so I did get to touch him and shake his hand, but he thought I wanted an autograph, but he wound up realizing and making me his equal. He may not remember that, but probably if he was in my human form and me in touched again, but we did meet at a bookstore because he was early and I was early, and nobody was there. It was just me and Deepak Chopra. Now, when Wayne Dyer, they left me out on the porch with him, but I listened to all his tapes, and I got to get his people synergistically involved. I got to meet Janet Carol Lessin, the girl you've been listening to in the beginning. And I'm looking forward to meeting Karen someday, probably at an event we have. I hope to meet at least once a year, folks. So emotional intelligence,
okay.
try
There's
to learn
your time.
about that. Okay.
Your time's up.
Thank you.
Okay.
All
on
right.
to Karen.
No, you.
Oh.
Karen.
No, it's you.
No, is it my turn?
You.
I got confused.
Yeah.
Okay. What do I want to talk about? Oh, goodness. Yeah. Well, yes, psychology really has saved my life. If I hadn't had therapy, I wouldn't be able to walk or talk. And I love my parents, but they were just very, very, very dysfunctional. They probably were mind controlled and MK Ultra. They were in the Masonic Lodge, and there's all kinds of stuff that I have no idea what was going on with those poor people. And I didn't learn about it until they were passed. And my mother died in 97, my dad in 99. And then I met Sasha in 97, and I just went into intensive therapy because my whole life had been very abusive, and I had repressed it, and I had created an alternative reality. When I moved to Oahu, this woman, Angelica, she befriended me, and one day she just sat me down and she said, who beat you, your mother or your father? And I go, oh, they didn't beat me. Well, yeah, you had to, because you ended up with such an abusive man. My first husband was extremely abusive, and then but he was physically abusive. My second husband was emotionally abusive. He was always hypercritical, and then when I left him, he beat me up then. So, and I kept going from the frying pan into the fire, and so it didn't really hit home until I met Sasha that I had created this alternative reality that my parents were wonderful. And it's good. I mean, it allowed me to have a relationship with my mother. My mother and I became friends. I think I only really knew my mother for the last 10 years of her life, perhaps, because up until then she was kind of a crazy person acting out whatever had been done to her. So anyway, I think therapy is really important. I differ a little bit with what you said, Karen. You probably have a really good. I get the hard cases. I get the people come to me that have been in satanic rituals or ritually abused, and I worked with them for a long time. That's hard. It's very hard. I'm so glad I have a husband that can do primal therapy with these people, and they go into their core. We've lost some. A couple of them suicided. Sometimes there's not much you can do when they're having that much trauma in their lives, so they kind of have to melt down and do it over. So doing therapy is hard, but every time you do therapy with somebody else, you do another piece of your part. Therapy is not always intensive therapy where you're we do a gestalt where you beat pillows and do a Imago process. Why did you end up with the person you're with? And they usually reflect unresolved issues with your parents and so on and so forth. But right now I've been doing mostly, hypnosis and a lot of talk therapy because we're remote and so we're not in person. But I guess I could do the same thing. We do something called voice dialogue where you learn how to center, become conscious. So what humans are, we are a mixture of all these sub-personalities. We put on a different hat when we go to work than the one we wear when we're a lover in bed or when we're taking care of the children. So we have all these sub-personalities and alters. And our government's aware of our alters, and so some of them, I shouldn't say our government, but a faction of our government have used that system to split people into their sub-personalities, and then they're not aware of what's going on, and so they act out things. So I would love somehow that our society would start doing therapy when kids start to go to school, find out what's going on. We started to show with racism. How do we become racist? When are we racist? Can we bring that into our consciousness? Consciousness is being aware of what we do subconsciously. And after a lifetime of doing my therapy, I have been able to access my subconscious, superconscious, and my unity conscious. I've actually gone all the way to God's source, high five, became aware of my essence, my fractal, my partial that resides at the right-hand side of God type of thing. The Christic consciousness, we see everything is separate, but that Christ's consciousness resides within each and every one of us. I'm sorry, I forgot to hit the timer. So I'm going to yield to Karen. Thank you for listening to me. We have about 10 minutes left. So probably one more round, a shorter round each person. I'll make it 4 minutes. Karen, to you.
Okay. I think that's beautiful what you said. I totally agree with you. I think that working on yourself is so important. That's what it's called, I guess, in the therapy work. It can be done many, many ways. And I used to do the conservative way, the conventional way, and did all that. And then I've moved into more of a creative way through sound. And the way I have my little recording studio set up is that I use sound and can go to different voices and different sounds. And I pick the sounds from my background. I've stayed with one sound for a long time because it blends well with my channel and my sound whenever I read the person's electromagnetic field and I take it in there and do the recording. But I probably need to look for some other background music. But anyway, I had a signed agreement with John Serry, who is the father of planetary music, and years ago. And so he's a great composer and musician, and that was back in 2011 where I did my CDs. But now I'm getting into more of a sound of just vibrations that blend with the sound that the person needs for the conditioning in order to learn how to trust themselves. The key is love and trusting yourself, trusting what you believe. Trusting yourself is an important, unconditional, loving being that you accept and you trust that's you. And that also brings your power, and it brings your ability to reach out and see things that are invisible from a certain amount of consciousness, or that I call it the invisible world. You can call it anything. But that's where we're going. I think that's where we're going to go. I've seen a lot since these issues have happened nationally. The death of the man that where it happened, and the beautiful sermon with Sharpton was great. But it's gone all over the world, and I think it's great because it's when you listen to the news, these people are really into their feelings, and on some level, on many levels, they're healing. And it's been good, and those energies go out into the universe, go out into the countries through energy and sound and feelings. And I feel like that we as a human race are becoming more empathetic as a populace. So that's all I can say. I know I've been talking about the same thing over and over again, but that's where I am pretty much all the time. So it is about sound. For me, and my contribution as a light worker or a teacher or clinical hypnotherapist or being psychic, whatever you want to call it, is channeling sound and providing unconditional love that's why I've come here. So that's all I have to say, guys. I can pass the baton to TJ.
Okay, sounds good.
Beautiful lady. All right. I like the fact that Janet, Karen, and I have, even though we aren't together we are together because we're souls, and we seem to, if you listen, there all three of us have this similar talk of ourselves, our awareness, and I'm sure all of us have done our therapy or been to a therapist or done work on ourselves. That's called your inner work in many arenas for those outside of our spiritual science community. But I've been running a community of metaphysicians, I guess one might say, psychics. I've trained mystics, oracles, psychics, sages, seers, guides, and now I work with guides in the technology field, and I'm happy with that. I'm doing my best to create a community. So if you guys want to join me, great. We're going to be doing webinars and workshops and helping people in the world of metaphysicians and other groups that have been around for years. I could mention names of some of the great leaders that you probably know of that I've been asked to represent them in my area of the country just because I'm strategically located in the Panhandle for different groups. Okay, Edgar Casey for one of them, but they asked me if I wanted to represent this area, which is somebody in the business. That was a great calling. But I've had the Ascension Age, and I was one of those things in Hawaii when on my spiritual path where I got that calling, and I got a sign with lightning and thunder on a sunny day that split a tree right next to me. My partner in business said, lucky we had wheels because we would have been electrocuted. It was that close. And that sign, I've had people in graphic design and at the newspaper where I worked in Kentucky try to remake it. They said it's too complicated. Then on my wall, I had 2011, I had my parents were going to die that year, but it's on UFO Digest. So I've got things recorded in time for use in trade. But I just want to say that the Ascension Age is important to me, and it does have to do with what Karen's talking about. Later on, we'll get more in detail on sound and vibration. But, you know, that's one thing Tesla mentioned that we should study if we want to learn things. So there's been people that have come to this planet, and I'm so glad that me, Karen, and Janet are here to be of service, and everyone is in service to self and others. So we don't need to split that way in the light worker, truth seeker community, which I coined those words many years ago in the beginning. And I've talked about different people, and we're all doing this together, folks. So help us with the cyberspace community. Be a light worker, truth seeker, if you will, a guide for others, and join us. And I have books available on Amazon, as does Janet, and I'm sure Karen, if she doesn't, she's working on one. But Karen, I need to ask you, tonight is my by invitation only for authors for 8 years, and you're here tonight on Friday. Are you an author, or are you thinking about writing us one we can use in workshops? About what you do.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, we're talking to you.
Oh, okay. You know, I should have written a book a long time ago. No, I do not. I only have 4 published CDs on Amazon, but I could. I just don't ever have time. And
you publish CD then. That's fine. We're doing an audio book tonight, Karen. So this is the spoken word audio. So this is an oral book report in a manner of speaking on our soul and what happened on the planet. And we invite other people. Great. So Karen, I hope you'll return with us Friday and keep this up with Janet. Janet and I've been doing it 8 years.
Oh,
and
I
we
love
could be dead
you guys.
tomorrow.
I'm enjoying a lot. I hope I'm doing okay.
You're doing great.
Compatible.
Hey, I have to tell you, we're almost out of time. Hold on, let me stop this. So
we can go a couple of minutes.
The last time you played music, it bounced. So you got to play a different exit music because that one got flagged. I don't know. It was your song, so we'll do different exit music.
Oh, okay.
But so our website, mine, AquarianRadio.com, Janet KaraLessin.com. Got a bunch of other sites working on it. SchoolofCounseling.org. Karen, what's your website?
Mine is Karen Gresham, KarenGresham.com, KarenGresham.com. That's my website. And that has my email address and how to set up an appointment. And it has my testimonials and all my bio and my press kits in there. So that's where people can go if they're interested in having a session.
So, TJ, we're out of time. Your website, and then please play the exit music. Thank you so much, everybody.
Theresa, yes, thank you, Janet and Karen. It's been wonderful with Aquarian Radio in Hawaii. This is our 8th year together. So this was our anniversary with Karen Gresham Nickell, Janet Carol Lessin, and I was your other host, Theresa J. Morris. That's Theresa, like there's a Theresa, it's Greek. Theresa J. for initial Jeanette Morris, Morris, TheresaJMorris.com. And I've got SSL on there, but if Google says something, we're working on it because I do all my hosting, but my store's up there, folks, for developers, and I'm a geek in the techno field and helping other guys help with hosting and all kind of things for big companies, small companies. Janet Carol Lessin and Karen Gresham Nickell and Theresa J. Morris. So we're signing off. Hopefully we'll be here next week, folks. Lord willing, the creek don't rise. So ocean, because I'm here with tropical storm headed my way. Love and light, everybody.
Yeah.
Be safe.
Love and light.
Thank you.
Love
and Karen.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Aloha.
TJ and Janet.
Thank you, listeners. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. That's great.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.